This is Miss Alice, and I want you to think about something for a moment. There was a time when she wanted you, not as an obligation, not as a performance, genuinely, the kind of wanting that did not require the right circumstances or the right mood or the right amount of effort from you beforehand. She just wanted you. And somewhere between then and now, that changed so completely and so quietly that you cannot identify exactly when it happened. You only know that it did, that something that used to be present is absent now, and that the absence has a quality to it that is different from the ordinary fluctuation of desire inside a long marriage. It is not temporary, it is not a phase, it is not something that will resolve itself when the stress at work settles, or the children get older, or the timing improves. It is a conclusion she reached about you, about your standing in her eyes, about whether you are someone she is willing to be fully present with in the most intimate dimension of your shared life. And the reason she reached that conclusion is almost never what men assume it is. Today, I'm going to tell you the real reason. One that is uncomfortable enough that almost nobody says it directly, because you deserve to understand what is actually happening inside your marriage, rather than continuing to manage a problem you have fundamentally misdiagnosed. I am Miss Alice, and this is the conversation your wife is not having with you. Reason number one, she stopped being intimate with you the day she stopped respecting you. And the two things are not separate issues. This is the starting point, the foundation of everything else I'm going to say today. And it is the piece that most men resist most strongly, because accepting it requires accepting something about how female psychology actually works, rather than how men wish it worked. Women do not experience desire and respect as separate things the way men can. A man can be frustrated with a woman, can even have lost significant respect for her in specific ways, and still feel genuine physical desire for her. The two dimensions can coexist in men in ways that are genuinely separate. In most women, they cannot. For most women, desire flows from a specific internal state that has everything to do with how she sees the man she is with. When she sees him as capable, as someone who handles things, as someone whose presence in her life produces a feeling of genuine security, rather than low-grade anxiety about whether things are being managed. When she sees him as someone she is genuinely proud to be with, someone whose standing in the world matches or exceeds what she believes she deserves. When she sees him that way, desire is natural. It does not require engineering or the right circumstances or careful management of her emotional state beforehand. It simply exists as the natural expression of how she feels about who he is. When that picture changes, when something shifts in how she sees him, when respect begins to erode for reasons she may not even be able to articulate clearly, the desire does not remain separate and intact, while only the respect changes. They go together, always. In the marriages where intimacy has disappeared almost entirely, you will find, without exception, a woman who has lost genuine respect for her husband. Not a woman who is difficult or withholding or damaged, a woman whose desire went where respect went. Understanding this is not about blaming her. It is about correctly identifying the source of the problem so that what follows this conversation points in the right direction. Reason number two. The moment she discovered she could move him with emotional pressure was the moment something changed in how she saw him. You probably remember the first time it happened. She expressed displeasure about something, strongly, with the specific intensity that communicates this matters to me, and I need you to respond to it. And you responded by giving her what she wanted, not because you were convinced it was the right decision, because her unhappiness was something you could not sit with. Because making her happy was a priority that overrode your own assessment of the situation. You thought that was love. You thought that was what a good husband does. She received a completely different message. She received the information that her emotional state is a lever that moves you, that if she applies sufficient pressure in the right direction, you will yield regardless of your own position on the matter, that your decisions are ultimately shaped more by her feelings than by your own judgment. This information did not produce gratitude. It produced the specific and quiet discomfort of a woman who just discovered that the man she is with can be moved off his position through emotional pressure. Because a man who can be moved through emotional pressure is a man whose judgment she cannot fully trust. If he changes his position, not because he received genuinely new information, but because she expressed displeasure strongly enough, then his position was never really his position. It was a placeholder that her emotional state can override whenever she applies it correctly. And a man whose position is a placeholder that her emotional state can override is not a man she can fully respect, is not a man she can relax into, is not a man whose presence produces the specific feeling of security that desire requires to exist naturally. He is a man she is managing. And desire does not flow towards someone you are managing. It flows towards someone who manages himself well enough that you do not have to. Every time you yielded to emotional pressure, rather than holding your genuine position, the respect dropped a fraction. The desire followed. And the accumulation of those fractions across years of marriage produced the distance you are living inside now. Reason number 3. The tests she ran were never designed to make you fail, but failing them taught her something she could not unlearn. You have felt them. Moments when she did something that seemed unreasonable, said something that seemed designed to provoke, created a situation that seemed to have no good solution, and watched to see what you would do. You probably did not recognize them as tests in the moment. You experienced them as conflict, as her being difficult, as something to be resolved as quickly and smoothly as possible so the relationship could return to comfortable equilibrium. That instinct to resolve quickly and smoothly is what failed the test. Because what the test was designed to discover was not whether you would keep the peace. It was whether you would hold yourself under pressure. Whether the man she married had enough internal stability that her worst behavior could not relocate him from his own position. Whether she was with someone solid enough that she could push against him and find something that did not give way. She was not hoping you would fail. She was hoping you would pass, hoping to find the solid thing that would allow her to stop testing and simply trust. When you resolved the tension by yielding, by becoming more accommodating, by smoothing things over at the cost of your own position, you gave her the answer she was hoping not to receive. He will give way if I push hard enough. That answer is not something she filed and forgot. It updated her picture of you permanently. And each subsequent test that produced the same answer updated that picture further, until the picture she carries of who you are became the picture of a man whose yield point is lower than her respect threshold. And a man below her respect threshold is not a man she reaches for. Reason number 4. She is waiting for you to handle something without being asked. And you keep waiting to be asked. This one is quiet. It does not announce itself as a problem. It accumulates invisibly across thousands of ordinary days until the weight of it has become something neither person can easily name. She is watching, not consciously, not with the deliberate evaluation of someone conducting a formal assessment, but in the automatic background processing of a woman whose nervous system is continuously monitoring whether the environment she is in is being managed by someone capable of managing it. And what she is watching for is simple: evidence that you see what needs to be done and do it, without her having to notice it, communicate it, ask for it, manage you through doing it, and then evaluate whether it was done adequately. Evidence that you are taking genuine ownership of the shared life, rather than waiting for her to direct you toward what needs attention. What she is finding instead, in the marriages where intimacy has disappeared, is a man who is genuinely willing to help, who will do whatever she asks without complaint, who is cooperative and responsive and available, but who requires her to do the mental work of identifying what needs doing, of monitoring the household and the family and the finances and the social calendar and everything else that constitutes the full management of a shared life, of running the operating system while he functions as a capable piece of hardware waiting for instructions. The willingness to help is real. The absence of ownership is also real. And the combination of the two, of a man who will do what is asked but will not take what is not asked, places the entire management burden on her. And a woman carrying the full management burden of a shared life does not feel held. She feels alone in a way that is worse than ordinary loneliness because she is alone while technically not alone. Carrying everything while someone capable of helping stands next to her, waiting to be directed. That specific aloneness is one of the most reliable desire killers available. Reason number 5, the criticism became her primary language, and she forgot what it was doing to you while it was doing it. She does not experience her criticism as criticism. That is the first thing to understand. She experiences it as communication, as honest expression of her needs and observations, as the kind of direct feedback that a secure partnership should be able to handle without damage, as things that need to be said, because saying them is better than letting them accumulate unsaid. What you are experiencing on the receiving end is something completely different. You are experiencing a continuous low-level communication that your best efforts are consistently insufficient, that the standard you are being measured against is always slightly above wherever you arrive, that nothing you do lands as genuinely enough, that the person who is supposed to be your greatest supporter has become the primary voice telling you that you are falling short. A man can absorb this for a significant amount of time. Men are remarkably resilient in the face of sustained criticism from someone they love, because the love makes the criticism feel like information rather than attack. Because the desire to be enough for the person they have committed their life to keeps them trying to meet the standard no matter how many times the standard shifts. But absorption has a limit, and what accumulates in a man across years of sustained criticism that never reaches a point of genuine satisfaction is not anger in most cases. It is something quieter and more permanent. It is the slow withdrawal of the part of him that used to reach toward her, the part that brought his full self into the relationship, that was genuinely open and genuinely present and genuinely invested in being seen clearly by the person who mattered most. That part stops reaching, not with a declaration, with a gradual retreat behind walls that the criticism built brick by brick across years of landing on a man who deserved better than what it was communicating. And a man who has retreated behind those walls is not someone she is reaching for either. The criticism killed the intimacy in both directions, and she does not see the connection between what she was communicating and what she is now living inside. Reason number 6. She needed to feel like she was winning with you, and somewhere she stopped feeling that. This is the part that is most difficult to say clearly without it sounding reductive, but it is too important to soften into something less accurate. Women need to feel like they are winning with the man they are with, not winning against him, winning with him. The specific feeling that the man she chose is someone she can be proud of, someone whose standing in the world reflects well on her judgment in choosing him, someone whose presence in her life represents a genuine gain rather than a neutral or negative outcome. When she feels that she is winning with you, everything flows naturally. The desire is natural. The warmth is natural. The generosity of a woman who feels genuinely lucky to be with the man she is with is something that does not need to be requested or managed or carefully maintained. It simply is, because she genuinely feels it. When that feeling disappears, when something shifts in how she assesses the man she is with relative to what she believes she deserves, the natural flow of everything that was produced by that feeling stops. Desire stops, the warmth stops, the generosity stops, not as a decision, as the natural consequence of a feeling that is no longer there. The question worth asking honestly is, when did she stop feeling like she was winning with you? Not because the answer is comfortable, because the answer is the most important diagnostic information available about what actually changed in your marriage and when. Reason number 7. The dynamic shifted from partnership to motherhood without either of you noticing, and women do not want intimacy with someone they are mothering. This one lands hard, I know that, but it is too accurate to leave unsaid. There is a specific transition that happens in some marriages across time, where the wife gradually takes on a role that goes beyond partnership and into something that more closely resembles management of another dependent, where she is tracking his appointments, reminding him of obligations, following up on things she asked him to handle, managing his emotional state when he is struggling, smoothing over situations he created. and generally functioning as the operational support system for a grown man who is capable of managing himself but has stopped being required to. She became his mother, not deliberately, not because she wanted that role, but because the vacuum created by his gradual withdrawal from self-management was filled by whoever was paying attention to what needed filling. And once that transition happens, something very specific follows. Women do not desire the people they mother. The maternal dynamic and the intimate dynamic are almost entirely incompatible in sustained proximity. She cannot carry the mental and emotional load of managing him as a dependent and simultaneously access the dimension of herself that desires him as a partner. The intimacy did not disappear because desire died. It disappeared because the dynamic that produces desire cannot coexist with the dynamic that replaced it. Until the dynamic changes, the desire will not return, regardless of how much effort is applied to the symptom while the cause remains unchanged. Reason number 8, she compared what she has to what she sees, and the comparison was not in your favor. Social media did something to marriage that nobody adequately warned anyone about. It gave women a continuous feed of curated versions of other people's relationships, other husbands planning elaborate surprises, other couples in apparently perfect alignment, other men demonstrating apparently effortless romantic investment in their wives in ways that photograph beautifully and perform perfectly across every platform. None of these representations are accurate. They are performances. Selected moments from relationships that contain all the same ordinary friction and disappointment and unmet need that every relationship contains, presented without the context that would make them human rather than aspirational. But the comparison your wife is making is not between your real relationship and their real relationship. It is between your real relationship and their performed version. And your real relationship, with its ordinary friction and its unresolved tensions and its accumulated history of the specific ways you have disappointed each other across years of shared life, cannot compete with a performance. She is not doing this maliciously. The comparison is largely automatic, but the result of the comparison is real. Every time she looks at what she has and measures it against what she sees, the gap between the two produces a dissatisfaction that lands on you. Not because you are failing by any honest standard, because you are being measured against a standard that was designed to be unachievable and that serves primarily to keep the people consuming it in a permanent state of manufactured insufficiency. The desire that disappeared was not a casualty of who you actually are. It was a casualty of what you were being compared to. And the comparison was never fair. Reason number 9, she stopped trusting that you were actually in this. And desire requires trust before it requires anything else. You are in the marriage, physically, legally. By every visible measure, you are present and committed and not going anywhere. But there is a version of being in a marriage that goes beyond physical and legal presence. That involves genuine emotional investment in the specific person you are with. Genuine curiosity about who she is and who she is becoming. Genuine presence in the conversations and the moments and the ordinary texture of shared daily life, rather than the kind of presence that fulfills obligations while being somewhere else in every meaningful sense. She has felt the difference between those two versions of you. She has felt the version of you that was genuinely there, that was curious about her and present with her and invested in the specific and particular person she is, rather than in the role she fills in the structure of your shared life. And she has felt the version of you that goes through the motions, that is present at the table but absent from the conversation. That fulfills the practical requirements of the partnership, while the part of him that actually connects with another person is somewhere else entirely. When she stopped feeling the first version and started feeling only the second, something in her stopped trusting that you were actually in this, and desire does not exist without trust. Not the sustained, returning, genuine desire of a woman who wants the man she is with. That desire requires the specific trust of a woman who believes the man she is with is genuinely present with her. When she stopped believing that, the desire did not gradually diminish. It withdrew to a safe distance from someone whose presence she could no longer fully trust to be real. Reason number 10, Nobody told her what withdrawing intimacy actually does to a man, and she does not understand the damage it is causing. This is the final truth, the one that requires the most honesty to deliver and the most generosity to receive. She does not fully understand what the absence of intimacy is doing to you. Not because she does not care, but because the experience of intimacy being absent does not feel the same from her side as it does from yours. For her, the withdrawal was a response to something she was feeling about the relationship, a symptom of a shift in her internal state, something that happened as a consequence rather than as a deliberate action. She does not experience the absence of intimacy as a wound she is continuously delivering. She experiences it as a state that exists until the conditions change. What you experience is something entirely different. Every day inside a marriage where intimacy has disappeared is a day of carrying the specific and relentless awareness that the person who is supposed to want you does not. That you wake up next to someone whose presence confirms daily that you are not someone she desires. That the most fundamental need for genuine connection with the person you chose is being quietly and continuously denied, not because of anything specific, but because of a general conclusion she has reached about your standing in her eyes. That is not a minor discomfort. That is a wound that is reopened every morning and never given the conditions it needs to heal. And the man carrying that wound across months and years does not simply become sad. He becomes someone whose capacity for genuine openness and genuine presence and genuine emotional investment in the relationship is progressively diminished by the accumulated weight of wanting something from the person closest to him and consistently not receiving it. He becomes the distant, checked out, emotionally unavailable man she then adds to her list of reasons why she does not desire him. She created the condition she is using as justification, and she does not see the loop she is living inside because nobody told her clearly enough what her withdrawal was actually costing. Here is what I want every man watching this to understand. The intimacy problem in your marriage is not primarily a physical problem. It is not a scheduling problem. It is not a problem that resolves itself through romantic gestures or improved communication techniques or any of the surface-level interventions that get prescribed for this specific symptom. It is a respect problem, and respect problems have respect solutions, not the performance of strength, not the sudden adoption of a persona designed to produce a specific response, but the genuine and sustained return to a man who holds his own position, who does not yield to emotional pressure, who takes ownership without being asked, who is present with her in ways that are genuinely present rather than obligationally present. That man, the one she married, the one who existed before the gradual accommodation began, the one whose presence produced desire that did not need engineering, that man is still in there. Beneath the layers of a pattern that built itself slowly and without announcement across years of a marriage, where being a good husband got confused with being an agreeable one. The return to that man is not simple. It is not fast, and it will produce friction before it produces results, because established patterns resist change before they accommodate it. But it is the only direction that leads somewhere worth going. And it begins not with what you do for her. It begins with what you stop doing to yourself. I want to hear from the men watching this. Does this describe your marriage? Not in the version you would tell someone else, in the version that is true when you are honest with yourself in the quiet of an ordinary evening. Tell me in the comments, because the men reading this right now are carrying something heavy in silence, and they need to know that what they are experiencing has a name and that someone sees it clearly. And women who find their way to this video, if something in what I said felt uncomfortably accurate about a man you know or a marriage you are in, sit with it before you reach for the defense. The man I described is still there. He is just waiting for a reason to come back. Share this if it said what needed to be said. This is Miss Alice, and I will be back with more of what nobody else will say. Subscribe if you are ready to keep hearing it.